if everyone would, okay. Why is my camera not working? Oh, there we go. Okay. I never like it when it's this close. Right, so yeah, if everyone wants to put themselves on mute and turn their videos off, that'd be great. Oh, hold on. Okay. So it's recording now, but all of this will be cut off, by the way, when I yeah, so this bit will be cut off at the start. So when I share the replay, you won't be able to see this.
What the heck is going on here, man?
You turn your to put yourself on mute, Gary.
Oh, sorry. Where's that? Yeah, I've never seen this before. You got some. Where's mute? Oh, down the bottom, is it?
I've done it. I should have done it. Meeting everyone, just out of ease. Hiya, everyone. It's a lovely sunny morning here. I hope that you can see me. On my picture, it looks like you can see a lot of that the ceiling, and then bottom of my head is cut off. But I apologize for that. But if I bring the thing too close, it freaks me out having the computer too close to me. So this is where we're going to be today. You can turn your videos off as well, just because I don't know how it affects the reception, and also protects a bit of your confidentiality. I know your name's on the screen, but you don't get seen.
Just FYI, it's 3 a.m. in the US, and that's where I am. So that's why I didn't have my video on. I'm like, nobody needs to see this.
I hear you. I often feel like that. Right, I'm going to pop you on mute, Cara.
Yeah. No, I had it muted. Sorry.
Okay. Whew. Right. Leave that open. Leave that open. I'm muting everyone as you enter.
Oh, hi, I'm James.
Hi. Yeah, I'm just going to mute you. We're not. Yeah. Do you want to turn your cameras off as well? That'd be great. Whew. I hope you're all doing okay. I might need to at one point take a break to open my window to get some fresh air. It's quite warm here today. I've sat outside this morning and I've already started to get a bit red. So goodness knows what it's going to be like as the day goes on. But that's why I like to do these as early as possible. So not that we have a lot of the hot weather to worry about. But when we do get it, I don't want it playing a part. Right. Muted, 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 muted. Great. I won't start. Like I said, this is being recorded and transcribed. Obviously, only me at the moment. But all of this will be cut off because no one needs to see this bit. We have had nearly 100 people register, but as I say, it's a sunny Monday morning, so see whether sun wins or I win. Sure. Whew. 2 more minutes. Lots of names on here that I've not met before, so really nice to meet you all. Not that we're meeting properly, but it's lovely. Okay, 1 minute countdown. Nearly ready.
Well, I want to say thank you for putting together such a unique set of information for people that are unfortunately in a position like we are that have to deal with this sort of thing. I've never seen a website like this in the US, so I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Cara. I'm going to put you on mute again because we're going to get started. Thank you. Okay, we've hit the 11 o'clock bell, so I'm going to do the introduction. So just before I do, it is being recorded and it is being transcribed. That just, it helps when I can send the replay out to people that aren't able to attend. I can also use the transcription to put something together for you lot. If there's some key points that come up, and I will use AI for that because it's much better at using that kind of stuff and taking it out. So yeah, it is being recorded and transcribed. It will only be shared with people that have been registered, so you don't need to worry about it going any further than that. And what I want to do is I'm going to do brief introduction about me and that, and then I know. The thing is, if I pull the computer forward, I feel like it's too close. It freaks me out with it being too close. So that's why you're a little bit higher. I'll show you. If I bring it down, I feel like I'm too close and I don't like it. But if it makes you all comfortable, then I will do it. But it's not ideal. Anyway, so yeah, so I want it to be as interactive as possible. I also want to set like the tone of this, which is I don't have all the answers. I want to make that very clear. I don't have all the answers. What I have is experience of working with lots of people on their evidence. I have a framework that I find useful, and I'm going to share all of that with you in the hope that it will give you that same thing, that sense of someone understanding and more than you've got now. But court is its own beast. You know, we can present the best evidence possible, and it relies upon other people sort of interpreting that. So what I want to do is I want to give you the very, very, very best chance of doing that, of taking your evidence, your story, and turning that into evidence that the court will understand. But I also have to caveat with that I can't, you know, oh, have I muted myself? Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. So yeah, I can't give you guarantees, essentially, is what I'm saying, because there's too many variables involved in the court process. But what I want is to give you the confidence so that when you enter court, you know you've done absolutely everything you possibly can to present the best version of your evidence. Now, I tend to see evidence as being just one part of it. It's a really important part, but it's not the whole picture, because evidence is like data. So I'm a football fan, and I support Liverpool. We've just won the Premier League, and yes, I am going to just enjoy that for a moment, saying we are the champions. And we use data. We use data to choose our players. We use data to decide. I'm making it sound like I'm some part of this. I just want to clarify, I don't work for Liverpool. I have no part in this whatsoever. I am nothing but a fan. They use data to decide who is the best player to bring into the club, what is the best way to play. Does that mean that they're always going to pick the right player? The right player is always going to work out, and that the game's always going to go to plan? No. But what it means is they're always giving the best account of themselves. And that's the part that data plays, is it gives you that what's kind of going on under the hood with things. The other parts of you in court are one, you need to know your evidence. And I know that you know it, as in you've lived it. But when you've got complex PTSD, it can be so hard to recall things quickly. You know somewhere in the, you know, it's happened somewhere, and you've got it written down somewhere, or, you know, it exists, but you can't recall it. So part of the process with your evidence is, one, you've got to heal that. You've got to heal your brain as much as possible so that it can work with you on this, and get to know your evidence, so that even if you've got, say, a barrister, you can pop them a note when they say a lie in court. You can just write down 21st of May 2023, and you can hand that over, because you know your evidence so well that you know what you've got to counter it with straight away, rather than you going, oh my god, no, that's not true. It looks more chaotic. So I'm aiming for perfection here, but I know that that's not possible. But what I'm sharing with you is the best case scenario of doing that. The other part of that, I kind of like a pyramid, is you are your evidence. You are the strategy. You have to be the best version of you possible. Now, we're not talking about that today, but do you think that's really important for you to understand, that you are a really important part of your evidence? Okay, so we're going to get started. What I want to do, I'm debating whether to, for those of you that are comfortable, bearing in mind we only have 55 minutes remaining, I'm happy to invite you on to talk and tell me, but I do need to be mindful of the fact that there are 40 odd people here on this call, and I would like to speak to as many of you as possible. The ones that I don't get to speak to, then I will you can email me your questions and I will do my best to, or, there might be other people's questions might get answered and they might be the same. So I will do my best to cover everything, but bear in mind time and the amount of people that are on the call. I probably won't be able to get to speak to everyone. So if you are comfortable in coming on, pop your hands up and I will just go it through, and I think I'll do 5 that are like that, and I'll give you 5 minutes each. She says I'm not very good at timekeeping, so we'll see how that goes. So I'll do that, and then I'll open the chat. Then you can ask questions in the chat. Please don't ask questions in the chat while I'm trying to do this, because I do get distracted. My eyes will start going and I'll lose my train of thought. So wait until I've finished with that, and then I've got one on email as well that I'm going to answer. Again, some of these might already come up, so if there's crossover, then I won't do that. So someone has popped their hand up. Now I've got to find. Okay. Right. Okay. Right. So what Alfreda, are you still happy? You have lowered your hand. Are you still happy? You can unmute yourself if you're happy and you can talk.
I'm happy, Sarah.
Okay, cool. Great. Okay. Right. How can I help? I feel like it. Is that right now?
With my situation, I went to court with regards to child access. I have a child with my ex-partner, was with him for 23 years. Came out of the relationship 6 years ago. When I started to realize and see what it was that I was with. He currently is with somebody else, where it's the pair of them that were together in tandem. And I went to court, paid for a solicitor, where my ex-partner came, represented himself, but had his ex-partner that kind of like helped him with his case sort of thing. And at the time, I didn't know what I do know now from doing your course and what have you, because my mind went to mush. He controlled, manipulated the whole court system. And I've had counselling, just trying to keep it short and brief, where it was deemed that I had breached because my mother was unwell. She was down south and went down. He manipulated the whole system by saying that he booked to have our son, which he didn't do. I was getting random emails, which I just dismissed because I didn't know what it was about, didn't understand it. And that's what he brought to the court. Made loads of false allegations and what have you. To cut a long story short, it was deemed that I'd breached because my mum was unwell at the time. And he came off better than I did, although a court order was put in place for our children. Subsequently, 2 years down the line now, he stopped paying child maintenance. I believe he works. I've finished counselling, so I feel in a much better place. And I'm preparing now to go back to court. But last time I went, my solicitor wasn't good. It wiped out all my savings. And my head just went to mush with PTSD and what have you. And I get to a point when I get emails from my ex-partner, even though they come across as pleasant, there's an undercurrent, and I get really just my head just goes to mush, and I get breathless and what have you and stuff. And counselling has helped because they've said it's PTSD, even though he's not saying anything horrible or what have you and stuff like that. But there's an undercurrent there because my body just responds to the emails from him. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I'm going back to court now, and I'm trying to correlate all my evidence as proof. I've got a detective to try and monitor his patterns and what have you, because he goes on holiday 6 times a year, doesn't pay anything to support our son. So basically just what is the best way of submitting my evidence in terms of he's aggressive from the pair of them, quite calculating and covert, and bullying tactics that they both use. So I just wanted any kind of like advice in terms of how I can present myself better.
Can I ask how old the child is? Just
My son is 12.
12. Okay, it's an awkward age. For the court, I mean, not in, well, probably is in general as well, but certainly for the court. Okay. So, in terms of presenting yourself better, first off, well done on doing the counselling. That's, you know, so important because you've identified, you know, you've been through something traumatic. If you'd have been through a traumatic car accident or a shark attack, you'd have counselling. So, you know, we need to reduce the stigma of having counselling for this kind of thing because it is traumatic. And obviously that's giving you some tools. The difficulty is obviously you're still living with a lot of that. And part of that is, from my experience, and I own a specialist counselling firm, by the way, that deals with this. So this is, I'm not trying to talk myself out of business in any way, shape or form, but talking therapy is brilliant. And it's a really good first step to processing, to understanding, to finding your feet and yourself and your own voice a little bit. But your body still remembers the trauma and is triggered. So there needs to be some somatic healing within that, which is essentially healing it within your cells and within your body. I don't know if you've read The Body Keeps the Score, but it's a somatic healing is based on, kind of on that theory, or I don't know if theory is the right word, it's fact, that your body stores the memory. So whenever you receive a text message, an email that you associate, even it might not even be from him, you know, that just your ringtone generally might set you off because you think it might be them. So that it doesn't have to necessarily be them that are doing this. Your body reacts as if there is a threat and takes you into that fight, flight, freeze or fawn response, or flop as well. And so I would look at somatic healing. Within Corporate Toolkit, there are the I Am Safe tools, and they are all based on somatic and going into like your cellular memories and healing them. So I do recommend doing that because that's that part of that puzzle. Sorry, were you gonna say something there?
No, I said okay. Yeah, sorry.
So that's a big part of it because I'm guessing that they're using some kind of emotional instability, or, you know, making claims of, I don't know, you being, as they used, that it said that you're alienating yet, or?
No, it's she's in the background, so we communicate through our family wizard, but she's in the background. It's her that does all the email. I don't know her, I have nothing against her, that's, you know, but he manipulates her just as much as me.
Yeah.
So it's the pair of them, and it's mainly the bullying, or things, well, they'll put in the emails like, my son has said, you know, so they're using the voice of, they do that a lot, putting in the emails, my son has said X, Y, Z.
Is that to make allegations or accusations?
I think it's a subtle, they do a bit of both, but I think it's a subtle way of trying to put on to the email that my son is requesting these things that they're saying. So they're saying the voice of the child, when my son has nothing, said no such thing or what have you. And it's very subtle where they say they've had to put cameras on their vehicles because I've been abusive. I don't. I stay inside my house.
Yeah.
And I have a camera outside my house as well because they've made my ex-partner's made allegations in the past. So it's just really just trying to, I can't do anything about the behavior, but I'm prepared to not to take it just lying down because he's done so much, and I can't say it all here because of obviously time constraints and what have you, but there's just been so much that he's done that it beggars belief.
Yeah.
That he's so calculating in
yeah. And I mean, without wanting to like start on a negative, court are not good at recognizing this kind of abuse because it's one, they're not very good at it, but also when you look at it with someone who hasn't been through it, it maybe doesn't actually look like what it is.
Yeah.
It looks innocent because you haven't got the context. You haven't got the understanding of what this type of psychological abuse looks and feels like. So you can end up coming off looking paranoid.
Yeah.
When actually it's because you've got that context, you've lived with it, you've experienced it. And this is why it's so difficult for people like you and survivors of this, is because it's hard to separate that out, because you do have this lived experience, your body remembers it, your memory remembers it, and yet you, in court, you've almost got to park that, and that's almost impossible to do. So in terms of proving this type of behavior, it is about proving those patterns and how they fit in with the legal framework. So looking at the coercive control element. So I have it all printed off and laminated because I use it so often. So looking at coercive control, it's isolation, monitoring, going through each one of the legal frameworks and seeing where this behavior fits in. Now, like I say, on its own, one particular message might not be any of those things, but when you pop them into a pattern and show they've done this 12 times, and am I making sense? I know
Yes.
it's really hard to
Yeah, you are.
explain this. So that would be where I would start with that.
Okay.
The other kind of part of this is obviously your son himself in this. When you go back to court, Cafcass are going to become involved, and they will likely speak to your son. And at 12, he's what's classed as being Gillick competent, which means they believe that he's capable of saying what is going on for him. And so your work as a parent is to give him the tools that you didn't have when you got into this situation. So help him to understand what his intuition feels like, what his emotions are, how to stand up for himself. And you do that by doing it with him, by modeling it. So the things that you maybe can't do, you learn how to do them. So you could do that through the therapy, through working with a therapist, or the I Am Safe tools, or self work. You could do some of this by yourself if you want as well. Develop those skills within yourself, so you can model to him, oh, something just didn't feel right about that. I don't know what it was, but I'm going to trust myself that this isn't, this doesn't quite feel right, and show him that you're tuning into that. The problem you've got is your intuition and your trauma, and maybe your trauma is maybe stronger than your intuition at the moment.
Yeah.
And that's where that work has to kind of come in, is dealing with the trauma so that your intuition can rise, and then you can start to model those behaviors more. Because you need to be honest when he's speaking with Cafcass about, has he asked for those things? Has he said that? Does he feel like he's being put in the middle? Does he feel like he's being that? And it's not about him verbalizing, I think I'm being manipulated, because that would come across as being coached. But it's about, and it's not your job to coach him to, say any of those things. Again, that would land you in hot water. But it's about giving him the tools to be honest about his experience.
Okay.
Does that all make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you. Yeah.
No problem at all. I do recommend, I can't remember where it is. I'll send you. Did you watch the Safe and Secure webinar?
No, I haven't watched that yet. No.
Okay, I will. I'll pop that out to everyone, because that will help you to connect with your child and help them to build that.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll send that. All right. Thank you ever so much for your question. And as you can see, I am terrible at timekeeping. So let's have a look who is Next. Okay, I've completely lost the order on this, so I apologize in advance. Okay, I'm gonna Sean. I should have got that
Hi.
on here. I shouldn't have.
Hi.
So sorry.
Yeah.
Hi, Sean. I apologise if I've gone out of order. Please accept my apologies, everyone. It's not on purpose. It's just I think it's
Yes,
bouncing itself around.
thank you. Apologies. Mine is, I suppose, quite a specific question around Kafka's recommendations.
Mhm.
I'm going to court for the 6th time. I've been 3 times for finances and 3 times for children now, all on my ex-husband's applications. This time I'm representing myself because, as your previous caller said, the money runs out pretty quickly. So we had a safeguarding letter done by Kafkas, and we've been to a first hearing, and in that safeguarding letter, Kafkas made recommendations that we should go to mediation because we've been to mediation before. It had been fairly successful. The court at the first hearing also made a recommendation for mediation. My ex-husband is refusing to go to mediation. I guess from you, how does that look for things? Will that be viewed negatively, or or does it not really matter?
Well, it should be viewed negatively because it's an essential part of the process, and court obviously. Family court doesn't want to see families. Family court wants families to kind of self-regulate, as in, if you can't sort it out yourself, mediation, because that involves kind of neutral third party. So if he's not willing to do that and he's forcing it to go to court, then he's basically bypassing the process, which you might have other evidence of that you could put this under, like legal maneuvering. That might be a tactic that you can draw out within your evidence, that he doesn't follow court orders, he uses the system to get what he wants, kind of thing. So yeah, honestly, I don't know what reasons he's giving for not. Is he not wanting to change things, or is it my way or the highway kind of approach?
He wants to change things. I don't, because we've had our order in place for 8 years, and he's breached it continuously for 8 years. But very disruptive for the children. He now lives in America. He kind of just wants to visit whenever he wants to visit. But now he's asking for long periods of time for them to go out to America in the holidays, which they're not comfortable with. Yeah, I mean, as you say, the legal maneuvering, he excluded me from the MIAM at the beginning of the process. He deliberately didn't tell me about the MIAM. He doesn't comply with the orders. I mean, we went to a first hearing at the end of April. He was in that hearing, our existing order was upheld, and we were told to comply with it until the next hearing. And within an hour of coming out of court, he'd texted me saying he was cancelling his contact. Sorry, I see someone's put up, what is a MIAM? A MIAM is that first initial mediation session that both parties are supposed to attend before making an application to court.
Yeah, it's an essential part of the process. There are reasons that you wouldn't attend that MIAM, domestic abuse being one of them, but court wants to funnel everyone through mediation. They've put money into it. Actually, and this is a spoiler, the next workshop is with a mediator who will be talking about legal aid for mediation, so that will be next month as well. So I mean, yeah, it sounds to me as though you've got a strong case to present legal maneuvering, legal control, legal abuse, really, as part of this, because he's requesting the change. You're willing to sit down and have a conversation about it, and he's refusing to do that. So it makes you question, well, what's your motivation then, mate? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. That's really helpful. It sort of confirms what I was thinking, but you know, it's nice to have someone who's got a lot more experience than I do, kind of, you know, say the same thing, I guess. Thank you.
I think you'd have a difficult job explaining why he didn't want to go to mediation. So that, and again, from all you've said, there's definitely a lot of evidence there. So that would be my approach: is go back and present this, and you know, even this attempt to increase time is just being another one of those control mechanisms.
Yes, because
dragging you through court.
What he'll do when he's got it is just cancel all the time.
Yeah.
But there'll be more disruption because it will be more time that, you know, I don't know what's happening with the children don't know what's happening. But
Absolutely. You know. It's not child focused. So again, that would be what I'll be presenting as well, is this isn't child focused. Mediation would have allowed you the opportunity, because if you could have gone for a child included mediation.
That's what the court and CAF has spoken.
So they can have their voice and say, actually, you know, we don't want this, or, you know, this is how we want it to look. So him bypassing that shows it's not child focused at all. And obviously with all the other evidence you've got, I think it's clear to say that, yeah, this is about control and nothing more than that. So yeah, okay, thank you for your question.
Very much.
Okay, I'm now going to go across the screen, so hopefully you won't need. So Alexander, do you want to unmute yourself?
Hi.
Morning, afternoon, yeah, morning still.
Halfway. So I'm in proceedings with my 4-year-old son and his mum. We've had an interim court order in place for the last 4 weeks. We've got another date for an evidential hearing in July. And I get the first time, my first opportunity after 4 trips to court is to actually speak. I get 20 minutes, or we get 20 minutes each. And I was just wondering, you know, I've seen you've recommended doing a timeline of evidence, you know, to keep your story straight, so to speak. But in that 20 minutes, how much would you recommend that I go into the damages of our relationship and looking back for the patterns of coercive controlling behaviors? And, you know, they sort of frown upon focusing on personal sort of issues between parents, and it's more to do with obviously child focused. It's just troubling to balance that.
I think it's to start off with, this has got to be focused on your son, and so make it about him and the impact that whatever's going on is having on him.
Sure.
As you move through the process, you can start showing that this has been a part of a long-term pattern of behavior from her. But actually, right now, this is about, you know, wanting consistent contact with your son, wanting to, you know, be more solution focused, starting off on how you want this to look, and you know, if contact is being interrupted or she's gatekeeping in any way, I would use the FJC guidance on responding to, that's not its title anymore, but responding to alienating behaviors. That I can't remember the full title now. But if you have a look at that and how they what they're really looking for, so this prior positive relationship, and then any evidence that you've got that that the interruption is coming from her, so that's where I would start. I wouldn't go to, with the timeline, they need basically a brief background of, you know, how you got here, you know, why are you here, and why can you figure it out?
Case, you see. So fundamentally, as you say, the gatekeeping has been quite subtle, but there's been some, as you said in Sean's case, some legal manoeuvring and playing the courts and the system. So like a bit of a follow-up, cheeky second, is we've had a Cafcass report done, and most of that has been agreed to, apart from one evening in the week. But it's actually turned out I've just transitioned from seeing him for 3 hours every week to every other weekend and one night after school, but they not overnight. So the applicant has not gone with the Cafcass recommendations as such. I was just wondering how sort of likely it is that she'd keep being able to claim legal aid because of not going with the Cafcass recommendations.
I don't know. I don't understand the legal aid criteria in that and how that's impacted. So I'm not gonna be able to answer that particular part of that. The mediator next week might, but although he only works for legal aid in mediation, so I don't understand the criteria and how that if they don't go along, whether that does impact it or not. Maybe someone in the comments will be able to offer you some advice on that one. She'd have to come up with some good reasons as to why she's refusing to go along with that. What
Yeah.
They've made recommendations based on their findings, and she would need to present that. The difficulty you've got at the start, it's you're starting to see these patterns emerge. The court are still in that we'll give you the benefit of the doubt kind of frame of mind. And at the minute for you, it's about gathering evidence more than anything, rather than. This is the problem for all of you on this call, is you know more than the judge knows. And so it's like, the ending of the film and the other person doesn't. And it's really frustrating because you can't tell them all of this yet. It's like, you've got to stagger what you reveal. Because if you're going too hard, you've experienced this person, you suspect, this is what it's going to happen. Courts and Cafcass don't work in that same way. They work much slower, and they're more reactive than preventative. And this has always been a problem as social worker. This is a massive problem, that we kind of wait until things go bad and then they'll step in. And so for all of you, you kind of know how this is going to go because your ex, your behaviors, you can see it happening, but court can't see it yet. And so the way you have to present your evidence is you have to present them with where they're at, as much as frustrating as that is at times, is showing them what they need to know right now rather than telling them the end of the story. You've got to kind of reveal a bit at a time kind of thing. So for you right now, it is just about, okay, I agree with everything Cafcass have said. Mum has already breached that, or not breached it, but Mum has already, she's showing an unwillingness for this. It's her responsibility to show the court why. And then from there, it's just about getting evidence. So if she continues to, if it's put in an order and then she continues, you just got to keep gathering the evidence, unfortunately, which I know is frustrating, but that's kind of how the process works. Does that help?
Absolutely. Yeah. Keep playing the respondent.
Yeah. And like I say, so much of what I've created is about getting you to that point where you know more than other people. You know your case better than everyone else, which gives you a level of confidence and credibility. But you've got to know how to present it so that you're not coming across as being smug and arrogant and controlling. You've got to present it at the right time. So that's really important.
Thank you.
No problem. All right, thanks for your question. Okay, next up, Fergus. You need to unmute yourself.
To unmute myself. I know.
Yeah.
Hi, Sarah. You obviously know my case really well, but one valuable bit of insight that you mentioned on the previous webinar. I think one of the parents had asked about is a reference from a midwife or something to assert his ex-partner's stance. We all know, I mean, I know from your advice that we're not allowed to call them flying monkeys, but at what point in terms of evidence, you've advised me so incredibly, so incredibly that I feel like I've done a degree in all of this now, to take the emotional reaction out of anything presented to court and to make it evidence focused. What about when your ex-partner presents testimonials from flying monkeys?
Yeah, and that, you know, I think Alfredo, that yours was similar with her partner.
Exactly, and it's because we can't mark them as flying monkeys. I mean, you know, at best we can call them negative advocates, but how would you advise everybody, because clearly this is a common problem, to address this?
And they will, and to be honest, it's not really your job to point out that these people might be lying because they're coerced. If these people, so say, you know, and obviously I know your case, if you're heading for fact find, these people can be questioned. So that's when you kind of do your magic, is you ask the questions, you ask the right questions. And again, spoiler alert, I am releasing a cross-examination toolkit to help you with some of these things. So how do you cross-examine flying monkeys? How do you cross-examine a narcissist and know when they're lying and all that kind of stuff? So it's about the questioning when you have the opportunity, because these people are either, you know, completely under the control of the person that they're writing on behalf of, and so, you know, they'll lie for them, in which case, like I say, that's where the questioning, you can easily catch them out in a lie. No matter how well the other person has coached them, they will be caught out in a lie. You'll be able to add some context to the questioning as well. And again, it might be that that's part of how you respond to this, is providing some of that context around, you know, what they're saying. I'm sorry, I've got your case in my head, so I'm also trying to just think about what Alfredo was saying.
You know what? One of the things, because obviously I know you, but one of the things that I think is incredible that you literally just said, which is so empowering, is actually, do we have the power to actually just ignore the flying monkey comments and ask the court and suggest to the court that they subpoena them, or they you know, are that you know, where is the evidence, where is the proof point that these flying monkeys will stand up in court to say this? Because it's one thing to just write a little random testimonial or share an email exchange or share a text message or something, but completely another to ask that flying monkey to stand up in court.
Well, again, like I've made very clear, I'm not legally qualified on it, so do get legal advice on this particular thing. But it's my understanding that if they submit a statement to court, then they absolutely can be brought in to be questioned on that at the fact find stage. That's my understanding, is if they've committed to sort of almost saying on oath by submitting a statement that they've seen or heard or whatever something, then that is them saying, and I'm prepared to come in and ask that. So I would 100% be asking the court I want this person on the stand.
Wow. Do you know what? I mean, you know, as I mentioned before, I work directly with Sarah, and I'm so genuinely appreciative. But one of the things that I think it might be helpful to share with everybody else is how useful ChatGPT is to find out all these answers. So right now, literally, I've just typed that into ChatGPT, and I've actually just gotten a sentence that can be included to essentially say that signed statements mean that if signed statements in his court bundle, that essentially the court can contact those people directly out of court as well as in court. So yeah, fascinating.
Yeah,
Sorry,
they've put themselves up for being part of this now. So yeah, I'm just thinking.
Sarah, listen, I'm not going to take all your time, but I'm just going to say, like, I'll just email you that sentence. So if you want to use it.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, and she's right. ChatGPT could be really helpful because it takes the emotion out. If I'm working on people's statements and stuff, they're very emotive, and I get that. I completely understand it. But just shove it through ChatGPT, and it'll take the emotion out of it for you. I've also developed AI tools for you to be able to write your statement from those things as well. They're all part of the Corporate Toolkit and Master Your Evidence. So, Alfreda, I'm just going to briefly just want to come back because I'm thinking about what you said about your ex-wife, not your ex-wife, your ex's wife, and the obviously that wouldn't necessarily apply to this, although it could. If you got to fact find, you could definitely look to have her on the stand. But I think particularly for your case, remember that this is about your son, who is 12 and therefore has a voice, and he can say whether he wants X, Y, and Z. And if he is being emotionally manipulated, with children, these situations often are, again, you giving him the tools, those internal tools to recognize when that's happening and how to counter that, that will help him to be able to say, actually, no, I don't want to do that, or you're not listening to me, or those kind of things. All the things that we wish we had the skills to do, these are things we need to learn so that we can teach the children how to do that. And again, there's tools on that I can share. So okay,
yeah, that'll be brilliant.
Okay,
Thank you. Thanks so
much.
Right,
Sapphire. Right, before Sapphire, you speak, it looks as though this might run over a little bit. Is there anyone who cannot stay longer than 12 and has their hand up? Just let me know in the chat. If not, then I'm going to just carry on. I'm not going to carry on indefinitely, obviously. Do you have your hand up, Daria? No, okay. So right, okay, Sapphire.
Hiya.
Hiya. Sorry about that.
Hear me all right. That's all right, no worries. So I'll try and sort of give a bit of context, but in a nutshell. So with my ex partner, there was like verbal, physical, and like emotional abuse throughout the relationship. And it's only since I've left I have started to see it more clearly. I think I was too in it to see. I think what I'm trying to probably get at is, well, a bit of context. Currently, there's a police investigation going on with my ex, with this sort of, you know, the verbal, physical, and emotional abuse. Because like whilst pregnant, like he used to threaten me that he would section me, that he'd use all his money to have full custody of our child before she was born. And then obviously it would get me into a state because it would be over like an argument where I would never feel heard. He would twist my words, he would change my context, and then I think my problem was I just wanted to be heard. So I obviously, my emotions got the better of me because obviously it'd been going on for years. And then all I ever wanted was, you know, to resolve things and that. But he would then walk away or he would ignore me. And then I wouldn't be able to talk to him. He would give me a 5-minute like timer on when I'd be allowed to speak, but he would constantly interrupt me. So all of that would then really create like this emotional distress to the point where I then break down. And I've recently found out on like since post separation that he used to video me. So he used to video my reactions. And he would obviously has been telling me on most visits, the visits have stopped at the minute because he's got bail conditions. But he would always tell me on the visits, he's got videos of me, he's got a hard drive of evidence. I need a reality check. Basically, he says he can't wait for, you know, this all to come out in the wash, that I'm lying. He's just constantly saying, you know, my version of events are incorrect. And I think what's difficult is he's just saying he's got all these videos. I would never video, or I've got very few, because I never thought videoing was right in my eyes. But it wasn't till like once I had our baby. She's 7 months, by the way. So I left when she was 7 weeks because the environment was way too toxic and I had to take her out. I basically had a panic attack. He would just be very aggressive, constantly telling me he was going to have full custody of her, going to court. He had a lot more money than me, so that would obviously like unsettle me. And then with the police side of things, like the allegations that I've put forward, he's now denying all of them. So I guess my question is, I have some proof of things. I've got a few videos. I don't think I've got as many as what he has, because obviously he's told me he's got a lot. And I think my concern is, like, through the case, he's trying to say that I'm mentally unstable. I'm not really a good enough mother. He'd always say I was a shit mum, sorry for the language, for our daughter. He's now trying to say that I coercively controlled him by monitoring him and everything. Saying on most visits he would say that I've abducted her, stolen her, because basically my dad and my brother-in-law came and got me from the house because at 7 weeks I was in no fit state to drive. It would have been dangerous. And even on visits I was accused of parental alienation, but I was like, but you're here on the visit. I've been accused of parental alienation of the paternal family, even though I'd be like, let's sort out a date, let's sort out visits. And I think the hardest bit is being accused of mental health issues, where I am mentally sound. I think what the problem probably came from is being so wrapped up in that relationship. I think, you know, my emotions got the better of me. I didn't regulate. But since being out, I have obviously been seeing that I can regulate better now. I think it's now I've pulled myself out. But sorry, that's a bit of the context. So my question is, the fact is, I'm worried my case is not as strong because I don't have as much evidence as him compared to his allegations of all these videos. And I think my issue as well is because I was never allowed to talk, I would word vomit a little bit in distress on WhatsApp, but I'd always say what had happened. So I stated it, but he would never deny or admit. So I think that's my issue. Like, sometimes he would. It'd be a very top line, sorry for the hurtful things I've said, or sorry that I caused distress, but it never went deep into it. So I guess it's like, I know context is key, but I'm just worried it will just be seen as like my word against his.
And initially it will, because that's the court's stance. Is they start off neutral, essentially. Now what you said is, I would use his evidence against him. I think anyone who sits there and records their partner crying rather than comforts them and takes care of them is using that. I mean, that's highly, it's psychotic. I'm not psychotic. It's, you know, it's horrible. it's just such a cruel thing to do when someone's upset, not to get your phone out and record them. You know, it's bullying essentially.
Mhm.
So I would use that against him. So let him bring his videos and just say, this is thank you for all your evidence. Thank you for evidence of how shit you treated me. And, you know, all of that. I mean, in terms of moving forward, again, the context of the court is they'll take all of these things into consideration. What they want to know is, you know, where does the child fit in with this?
Yeah.
So what are you both asking for? What, you know, why can't you agree on that? And then it will weigh up the risk to the child of it not happening, or the risk to the child of it happening. And that's as you get deeper into the process, that's when these patterns start to come out of, you know, showing that complete lack of empathy. Again, I wouldn't use those terms, lack of empathy. We'd find a better way to say that. But being able to show these patterns of what a baby's well known for doing. Oh, I know, crying. Is he going to just get a camera out every time she cries? How is that helpful? How is that helping her to regulate? You know, all those kind of things. So I think at the moment, I wouldn't worry too much about what he has or hasn't got. I would focus on what you have got. And, you know, you're right that it makes a massive difference getting out of there, but there's still, you know, not to pee on your parade in any way, shape or form, but there's still healing work to be done, because trust me, court is going to be as traumatic. So you need to be mentally fit as if you were running a marathon. So that's, again, why I've created the courses, why I've included I Am Safe, why I've included all of these tools, is because it isn't just you going to court. This is psychological warfare. And so you need to have that mental capacity to deal with that. And obviously your child is so young, this potentially could be the, you know, your kid's childhood taken up by this. So you absolutely need to be aware of that and build your strength up so that it doesn't completely cast a shadow over your whole life and her whole childhood. It might happen in the background and be part of your life, but it's not the whole story of your life. And so that would be kind of a side bit of advice for you is if he's going to present you as mentally unstable, you need to present evidence that actually, I might have, you know, I definitely reacted. I definitely showed emotion. Shock horror, I'm not a Cyberman, I do have emotions. But I've worked with a therapist, you know, and you can get your, I say I run a specialist service for this, and we would write a letter for the court to say they've attended this many sessions. So you can show that you are, you know, it's not saying I'm mentally unstable because that's who I am as a person. You can say, I acknowledge that I has been mentally impacted by this situation, and this is what I've done to resolve that. And being able, like I say, I think Gary put it in the comments, if you go to your GP and get them to write a letter saying we haven't got concerns about their mental health, or they've never presented with concerns about their mental health, and just be prepared for that. Obviously you've got the evidence to show all the attempts that you've made for some sort of contact to happen. Focus on yours. Try not to worry. You spent an entire relationship trying to micromanage him. Now's the time to stop. So don't worry about what he's got until you see it, and then you respond to it. But don't get your mind in that, oh, what if he's got this? What if he's got that? Oh God, because that, you know, it can fill you with shame, if nothing more, of, oh God, and what kind of a mess do I look like? What would I look like on those videos? You're gonna have to just let that go. And deal with it when it comes up. And again, that's where that emotional resilience comes in, is you might have made mistakes, you might not come across particularly well, but here's all the ways that I've been working on things and trying to, you know, improve my mental health. The glaringly obvious thing will be the lack of work that he has done on his own mental health as well. So this is where strategy of using them, their evidence against them, is really powerful, I think, for what you've said. Does that help?
Yeah, no, that does. Thank you very much.
No problem. You're welcome. Okay, so I'm gonna speak to Daria. Do you want to unmute just because of her time zone? And then I'll come
Yes,
back to you.
hi. Hi everyone. I just wanted first of all to say say that it's a very difficult time that everyone is going through, and I just want to acknowledge the pain and difficulty. And so yes, my question would be, how do I get, I'm not in the court proceedings, we are just going through mediation right now. How do I get my ex to get the psychiatric or mental health assessment? Because I brought this up at the mediation session. The background to it is that my child, 12 years of age, is with the father in the UK, and it's recently been it's recently transpired that the child has been self-harming, and the child has been in the care of the father for the past 4 years. So and I've had the sibling of the father saying that they think that they've got a bipolar disorder. The current partner who I've bonded with over the abuse she's been going through with the partner, she has been saying, look, he's got the episodes and whatnot. So there is a way to get it to proof?
You said you're in Australia, so be mindful of the fact I'm in the UK, so I'm working on kind of what I know from the UK system. But to get any kind of psychological assessment done, it's usually further down the process, because courts are quite arrogant in the fact that they think they know what they're doing. And they think they've got a grip on this and all of that. They're very reluctant to consider psychological and mental health issues too soon in the process. And I say too soon by their standards, not by mine. So it is just about presenting the patterns of behavior that are harmful to the child. And obviously, if the child themselves are presenting with self-harm, that kind of stuff, then you know, you've got a strong case that the child is being heavily impacted by something, you know, and it, you know, that's kind of what your jump off point is. Look, this isn't working. Whatever's happening here isn't working for the child. The child is in pain, and so, and obviously court maybe isn't, I don't know whether it's the first time you've been in court, but I think unfortunately you're gonna have to just go through the process itself. You can keep asking and saying, you know, you recommend, you know, you would like there to be, you know, a family assessment done, so that you know, someone can understand the sorry, this is why I don't want chats up, because I start reading them and then I lose my train of thought. So
you mentioned family assessment.
Yeah, you can keep asking for that family assessment throughout, but just be mindful of the fact that the court will do things in its own sweet time when it feels, actually, we probably do need to get an expert in. That's how it works in the UK anyway.
Sorry, say it again, please.
So in the UK, basically, you can keep asking for the family assessment, but the court will only do it in its own time when it feels it's out of options. That's how it works in the UK. Now, if you're in Australia and you're alienated from your child, there is a organisation called Eeny Meeny Miny Mo.
Okay, thank you.
Reach out to them. She's brilliant. She's absolutely brilliant.
Okay. Yeah, this is just the father and the child. They're living in the UK, so the divorce is in the UK.
So would court be in the UK then?
Yep.
All right. Okay. So ignore. Well, no, Eeny Meeny Miny Mo is still really useful for you. They provide a lot of resources, so I still would recommend it. Even those of you in the UK, she's brilliant. But yeah, so in the UK, it's the same. It is that. By all means, keep suggesting it. Go along with what they're doing. They might, they might suggest a guardian. They might suggest a section 7, then they might suggest a section 37 if they don't get the answers and things don't work. And then finally, they might go, you know what? I don't think we've got a handle on this. We probably need some help. And that's when you can go, told you so. But it is slow, unfortunately. I'm sorry.
Okay, just in case if anyone is going through a similar situation, so we're getting the social services have been involved, and my child is going to get help through early help program, which I'm hopeful he's going to get it through. So through early help, I'm going to push for the assessment or some sort of help for myself as the parent, or and the father. So I'm hoping to kind of work through the early help to kind of surface the things. All right. Thank
Just
you
be
very much, Sarah.
mindful. Again, not wanting to pee on anyone's parade here, but be mindful that early help workers, and I've utmost respect for that. I was a social worker. I didn't have a frigging clue about any of this. They are not trained in these areas. So set your expectations, because they might not. Just again, as I was saying to Alexander earlier, be mindful of what you give them. Only kind of get a know your audience. So get an understanding of where they're at. Ask questions for curiosity. Like, what do you think is going on here? Have you ever seen anything like this before? What could be happening? And so that gives you an idea of where they're at in their level of understanding, because there's absolutely no point in you going in saying, well, I think I need this, that, and the other, if they're on a completely different page, because it won't do you any favors. So ask those questions with curiosity to gauge where they are at, and then present. And you can just focus on then nudging the needle a little bit by asking the right questions.
Understood. Okay, clear. Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you.
All right, no problem. Thank you for coming. Okay, Beth.
Hi.
Hiya.
So I've got 2 children. They're 2 girls, one's 17 and one will be 15 next week. We've been in and out of court for over 12 years now, coming up 13 years. Father has now got residency. I have alternate weekends and half the holidays contact. Completely alienated from my eldest daughter. I've not seen or spoken to her in over 2 years. Her dad has done this, but primarily her stepmom. Most of the alienating behavior is coming from her. My issue is that through all our time in court, the narrative has been set in a particular way, and incorrectly. Dad has a way of manipulating things and people, and but they basically seem to just hang on to every word he says, despite the fact that throughout this we've had indisputable evidence, medical records, things that it's not just hearsay, it's not he said, she said, or anything. It's indisputable, but his solicitors have managed to not include it in the court bundle and things like that. They've sort of sneakily managed to get things out, that anything that proved that what he was doing was wrong. And so this narrative has now been set. We're back in court again now. My youngest daughter is being very vocal about the fact that she sees what is going on. She sees the alienation. She sees what stepmom's doing and what the dad's doing. But dad is fighting for her voice not to be heard. And CAFCAS, they came in to do the initial safeguarding interview for this round of applications and have said that they refused to speak to my daughter because there's already a court order in place that's been in place for many years, and it works according to father, so they're not going to speak to my daughter. And she wants her voice to be heard. How do I get this across in the right way that my daughter's voice can be heard, and present the evidence to change the narrative that has been set? Because I'm on the back foot immediately going in. I mean, there's been so much going on over the course of this 12 years. There's been sexual abuse, physical abuse, you name it. And yet he still lands with his bum in the butter every time.
Okay. I mean, I'll be honest. I don't know why Cafcass are refusing to speak to them. That feels like that goes against their job.
Absolutely.
So I'm just thinking, it might, I don't know whether you saw it, whether you were part of my group, my community, but I spoke to Andy Hyde, who was an ex-Cafcass manager last month.
Yes, I was on that one.
I think it would be worth you maybe reaching out to him and asking him, how do I challenge that effectively? Because that does not feel right to me, that they would refuse to speak to the child, because that's their job. That's such an important part of their role, is to get the wishes and feelings of the child. So for them to refuse to do that, I would want
I
to.
mean, it's breaching her human rights. You know, she has a right for her voice to be heard, and she's living in a very toxic environment. And she's struggling. It's coming out in school. The school are noticing it. They're coming to me saying what's going on, and I'm trying to tackle this from the legal point of view, and get it sorted for her.
Yeah,
But it's really hard.
Oh, no, absolutely. I think, like I say, I would just reach out to Andy and see if he can suggest anything about how you might challenge that. In terms of what you can do, though, is use the evidence from, build your case without her words, or his words. Sorry, it was her words, wasn't it? Her. So build your case without that. Take what the school have got, take what mental health professionals are saying, take all that. And so Cafcass is saying court order's working. All these other people are saying court order isn't working. And it's just presenting that opposite perspective to court, that they're saying it's working based on what dad is saying, who has absolutely zero motivation to make any changes whatsoever.
Yeah.
But yeah, these independent people, school, the mental health, they are saying it isn't working and that she is suffering. And so, you know, one, I think it needs to be court ordered that my daughter, you know, she is spoken to as part of this process. And then that's kind of how I would approach it. Again, I'm not legally qualified, and I do think I would recommend speaking to Andy just to see from the Cafcass perspective, is there a way that you can challenge this that doesn't alienate you? Because again, you want to work with Cafcass, even though it might feel like, you know, they're digging their heels in and they're against you. You still don't want them to add their voice to you're the difficult one, you're the problem. So you want to find a way that you can work with them where possible. So I would reach out to him and just say, this is what's going on. Have you got any advice on how?
Yeah, thank you. I think I'll do that.
That will be
It's
how
really
I would build
hard
your
because
case for now. It's
Cafcass
focus on what you
have
have got rather than what you can't.
Absolutely, because Cafcass already have their narrative. You know, they already believe that he can do no wrong, and so it's because I'm on that back foot, and the court, so the Cafcass lady is saying that she refuses to speak to the child. They're dismissing. They don't want to take the case on anymore, basically. But it's not Cafcass's role to decide that; it's the court's role to decide it.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, like I say, that's why I think it might be worth seeing if Andy can tell you of any way that you can broach it with them, or it might be a case of that you don't, and you just take it to court and say, this is what they said, and let the judge go, hang on a minute, that's not right. But I would build it without her voice. I wouldn't. My thing is, you've got a limited amount of energy. Focus it in the most important places. Pick your battles, essentially. And that's why I would ask Andy, if he comes up with a really good suggestion, follow that. But if it's going to be a battle, I just wouldn't have it. I would focus on what you have got and push through that, because that's the most important thing. Also, you know, if you are seeing your daughter at 15 and she's you know, she's starting to see these patterns herself, she's going to vote with her feet. You know,
She
that's
already
the
is.
thing.
She's saying she wants to
Exactly.
come back to me, but the problem is that she loves her dad. She hates her stepmom. She knows the behavior is primarily coming from the stepmom, but she doesn't want to not see her dad at all, and she's worried about the repercussions if she tells her dad and decides to come live with me, and she's still going to want to see him, and therefore the stepmother comes with that, and she's scared of the repercussions of that.
No, not necessarily. And again, that's another thing that where child included mediation or child-led mediation would become useful is your daughter could say, I want a relationship with my dad. I just want there to be boundaries around it.
Yeah.
So that would be kind of where, you know, if when she votes with her feet, that's what I would be saying, you know, or you can even say, could we have child-led mediation? You know, let my daughter speak through that, because this isn't about not wanting to see you, i.e. dad. This is about her wanting to have more of a say in what that time with you looks like.
Yeah.
And then again, whatever he comes back with will be evidence for you of he's not child focused because he's not even willing to listen to what his daughter wants. Or, you know, as you suspect, it's her that's pulling the strings and going, absolutely not. I need to be involved in this. So those are some suggestions for you. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's helpful. Thank you, because everything that my daughter's now saying has proven what we've said right from the beginning with the alienation of my eldest. And she said to me that it's the stepmom that's done it all, and she's tried to do the same to her, but she just sees straight through it. So it's a really difficult one. But thank you, I appreciate your input.
No problem. All right, no problem. Okay, so I'm just going to answer the one that came through on email, because I think we've answered it in part, but it's essentially about someone who got coerced into an agreement regarding school and now basically wants to challenge that agreement. How can they prove that they were coerced into it? So my advice would be, it's difficult to prove that coercion at the time. I would be focusing on proving why this change should happen. So with regard to school change, I would be going and being child focused and saying, this is the reason I think that the school change is really important now, rather than going back over. That's not to say you're ignoring what happened then, and it might be that it can be useful with whatever they come back with, and you've been able to show a pattern of coercion and coercive control. But I think initially going back to change the school, make it just about changing the school and present all the reasons why, the same reasons why back then, but you'll have more evidence of that now. So just go back and say, look, you agreed to it at the time, you felt coerced into it, but you let it go. You've given it a significant amount of time. The child's agreeing, and the child's struggling in all these ways. That's why I'm coming back and asking for the school change to be happening. So that's my advice on that one. Right, back. So Beth, we did you. So let's move on to Kate. If you want to unmute yourself. Hiya. Oh, yeah.
There we go. Golly, this is amazing. Thank you so much for this and for everything you're doing. You're clearly the guiding light that a lot of us need at the moment.
Tingles, that's such a lovely thing to say. Thank you.
I'm trying to sort of say this succinctly. I've had sort of 20 years with an extraordinarily difficult man who I eventually managed to leave, and then 6 years of total hell. So if I thought it was bad before, it's been hell, a hell of a ride, and I'm sure that's familiar. The hardest thing I am finding is that he's such a master of DAVO, so deny, attack, and what he's doing is if he does anything wrong, messes up, forgets a night or leaves the homework at home, bike, blazer, won't pay maintenance. It doesn't matter what it is. and I dare to perhaps object to this or try and get him to put it right, he's sort of living in this sort of false narrative of, as far as he's aware, his model world is perfect. And I'm the only person in his world that questions his sort of somewhat deluded reality of how things actually are. So it triggers every possible sort of reaction in him to punish me if I object or attempt to get him to, you know, bring their homework bike, pay the money, stop his appalling abuse of them in, you know, verbal abuse or whatever. I wasn't actually prepared to do a question, but it seemed an opportunity. So what he'll do is, obviously, to me, deny, ignore, attack, deflect. And then he will go to the children and say, Mummy's so mean, she's so cruel, she's attacking me because of your bike. Or he'll just use them in the reverse victim and offender. So he'll use them, he'll use my stepchildren, who I raised for 20 years. He'll use neighbours, friends. So his narrative is, Kate's unreasonable. She makes everything so difficult. She's over emotional. She's probably a lot of other things. And all I'm trying to do is, if his night is Tuesday, then if they want to see him, he sees them on Tuesday, not every week to cancel it and expect he can then just completely disrupt them every week by having another night or just ignoring them for a couple of weeks because he's sort of too busy. What he does is include them in every conversation, every conflict, every argument, every financial dispute. And what I've done is, dreadful mistake over 6 years, thinking that I'm protecting them, I say nothing. And I thought that that was the best thing for them, because it would just, if I countered what he was saying, it will just become a he said, she said, and he will escalate it, and he will get nastier, and he will get, his tactics will get dirtier. So I've just said nothing. And of course, it doesn't actually protect them at all, because it creates cognitive dissonance in them. If he's saying, Mummy's so mean, she's so nasty, but they know that I'm not. But he's saying this. It's really hard to explain. Does that make sense?
No, I get you completely. What I would say is that what you've just described there about that cognitive dissonance, that's the bit that that's the work that you do. I don't necessarily think you do. I agree. I don't think you do need to go in and say, well, that's wrong, it's this. What you do is you meet them where they're at, which is they're coming to you confused. So you help them tune in to what they know is real. You don't force them, and I don't mean that you are, but that's the best word I've got at this moment in time. By giving them your version of events, and like you say, putting them in the middle of it, you say to them, that must be really confusing for you, and acknowledge that, and then help them to tune into what they know is the truth. That's what gets rid of the cognitive dissonance, is when they tune into their own truth and their own intuition and their own feelings about this, rather than being forced to choose which side do I agree on, which side do I think is right. It's them going, actually, I know my own truth here. I know what I experienced. I know which out of my mum and dad is more likely to have forgotten to bring my bike, or I know which one out of my parents is more likely to have up. Connect with their own truth, rather than you giving them your version of the truth, which, like you said, which actually just puts them completely in the middle and doesn't help them, because what they're coming to you is they're coming to you emotionally dysregulated. You need to be the one that regulates them by just being there, providing that safe, stable ground. That's where I will send you this safe and secure workshop, because again, I think that will massively help with how you'd respond to these kind of things, because that's what they do. They use children as grenades. Here you go, boom, send that back, and you go, boom. And it creates a disconnect between you and your kids, because you know, kids are then forced to take sides, and it creates a loyalty conflict. But when you don't, and you don't put them in that, you help your kids tune in to what they know is their own truth. These are all things that we should have known ourselves. We should have been taught these, and we would never have got into these situations if we'd have trusted what was going on in our own bodies that were saying, this person isn't safe, this person is this. If we'd have trusted that intuition, we wouldn't have ended up here. So we're giving our children those skills to tune into their own truth, rather than you providing another truth, another version of the truth for them to be caught in the middle of. Does that make sense?
It does. I think, and again, I don't want to take up too much time, but the most challenging issue is I've taken the silent stance for so long. There's an awful lot of baggage there to gently shine a light on. The most difficult being, for 5 of the 6 years, either one or both of them have refused to go there for extended periods of time, 6 months, 9 months. Mostly one at a time. So the cycle of violence, that he will love bomb one, get them back on side, lure them in with a false sense of security, and then the cycle will start again, and then he'll abandon them and then turn to the other child. And I've got all sorts of professionals that they've been referred to CLD, they've been referred to CAMS, either through direct sort of action that I've taken, or just by circumstances that they've blurted out in a GP meeting, or but the children are so manipulated and coerced that they almost don't believe any of that has actually happened, which of course is even harder to unpick and just adds to their cognitive dissonance. So when one child's not going, the other child will say, oh, it's not that bad, you're making fuss about nothing, you're so mean to dad, you're making it up. And then 6 months later, it'll be the other one saying that to the other child. And that's so complex. Absolutely.
I think part of it, and this is the hard part for parents, is understanding that it's perfectly natural for them to want the best of their father. They want him to be that version that shows up. You did it for years. For years, you wanted him to be that version, and you get disappointed, and you go back in. It's because it's an addiction. Your trauma bond is an addiction. You have the high of when they're great, and then they're in a good mood, and they're being there, and all of that. And then you have the come down when they resort to type, but you keep going back because you're in an addiction cycle. They kind of have to, as with any addiction, they have to break it themselves. And I know that I'm not advocating, leaving them to it per se, but what I am saying is, this from your own experience, that other people can't tell you to leave. You have to make that decision for yourself. So being the emotional safety, and again, I'll send you the Safe and Secure so that you can work through that, is about being with them wherever they are. When they come back and they're in that, oh my God, he's dumped me again, he doesn't want me, and he's a mess, and the other one's in a different cycle, as you say, holding space for them wherever they are, and also teaching each of them the empathy to acknowledge where the other one is and not try and force their truth onto that child. So it's all about that. It's all about giving your children those skills to navigate this addiction until they're ready to break it properly. And we know that from research that takes a lot of attempts before you actually, and when it's a parent, that's even harder. So they might always go through this cycle. This might be part of their reality, it's hard as a parent to watch that. But again, this is where you working on you and having the therapy to hold that space constantly and consistently when it's difficult. Does that help? Have I just
No, that does help. And just finally, in these situations when they've been so, I mean, I hate the word brainwashed. I certainly wouldn't say it in court. How do they tend to react when interviewed by Cafcass? When my daughter was, I had to take her to A&E on recommendation of the doctor because she's been suffering really badly with disassociation, a lot of it because of this situation. And when I took her after a really bad episode and the GP asked her, you know, what was wrong, and we told him, and he immediately just said, are you suffering any verbal or physical abuse? And she just came out with, yes, my dad's a really nasty man. He shouts at me, he screams, he loses his temper. So that was her instinctive reply. But my worry is that the amount of schooling and coercion he would give them leading up to Cafcass, it will just be, I don't know, not realistic of the situation.
Yeah, and it might not be. Cafcass struggle with recognizing these types of abuse, and even if they do recognize it, they don't really know what to do with it because they're trying to weigh up risk of not having a parent in their life versus having a shitty parent in their life. So again, it comes back to giving your children the skills to manage this person as a parent. And so when they speak to Cafcass, they speak authentically about their experience, and they can talk about what they might want, what would make it better for them, you know, and help it, and letting them, as you say, instinctually know what would make it that better. And it might be something completely that, you know, you don't know, and they maybe don't know until they're asked that question. But it's just by being them and building that secure attachment, then they will have more confidence to be able to say out loud what they're thinking, what they're feeling. And so that will help them say to Cafcass. Now, that's not to say Cafcass will know what to do with that. I'm certainly not saying that either. But you're giving your children the skills for having this parent in their life for the rest of their life. This person is their parent. There's no going back. That horse is bolted. They are their parent. And so giving them the skills to manage that. And like I say, when you give them those inner skills of knowing when something feels off and trusting that and going with it, you know, actually, no, I think that's a no. I don't want to do that, as opposed to just being a people pleaser and going along with that. But again, this comes down to a lot of it is, are you there? Do you feel you have those skills? Because if you do, you're modeling that to them in everyday life. So they're picking up on them. If you don't feel that you have those skills, then that's work for you, is to do that and model it to them. So it's actually, my advice to all of you really is, don't rely on the courts or Cafcass to be your rescuer. They are very flawed. This is your life. These are your children. And so much of this is within your remit. So focus on the bits that you can do and prepare the best for the other stuff, but be empowered. Again, everything I've created is to help you feel empowered that I've got this. I can turn up in court and present it. Whether that's received, that's out of your hands. All you can do ever in life is your best. That's what we teach our kids, right? Do your best. So that's all that I'm trying to get across here is, don't rely on Cafcass to be the ones that rescue you. Don't rely on a judge to be the one that rescues you. Do the bits that you can do that are within your power, and that's the parenting stuff. Does that help?
That really helps. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you. Estella?
I'll be quick. Thank you, Sarah. It's a pleasure to meet you, and pleasure to know you all and all your stories. I'll be quick. So I think I trust that I built my fortress well. So 7 years ago, I broke up with my ex. I was in an abusive relationship. I suffered domestic abuse. I went to live with my parents' house. The problem is, my father is also a very abusive man, and I live under the same ceiling. So the grandparents, my parents, have the same dynamic I used to have, and it was such a shock for me to look at my mother and see myself in the mirror. So the first thing that I did was first to seek help by talk therapy. Talk therapy didn't work. Then I started noticing my child's behavior, and she used to bump her head against the wall and get undressed and started screaming for hours. If I tried to talk to her, touch her, or hug her, or even approach her, coming closer, she would scream even louder. I suspected immediately of autism. I got the diagnosis. I looked for the doctor. I got the diagnosis. And luckily for me, the father accepted the diagnosis. And then came she is crazy as you are. And the first doctor, I didn't like the man, but my daughter, she stayed with the first doctor for 1 year. Then she started developing defiant behavior. I moved to a second doctor who gave her an even better diagnosis. And she stayed in there for another year. And this second doctor is ready he provided me all the evidence, and he was ready to tell me, you and your daughter, that is the relationship that I am willing to help you save. And because I know of my own dysregulation, and because ADHD is the queen of dysregulation, I knew about, in the clinic, I knew the clinic was specialized in neurofeedback. So I immediately asked for my own diagnosis, and I told the second doctor that I wanted to do neurofeedback, and I asked the same for my child, so that we can both regulate on an environment where I have a grandparent who is exactly like her father. I was thinking about that, because every time I got dysregulated, I had no one to help me. And I now, wait a minute, the neurofeedback didn't work well, and the school came crashing on me because she was distracted. She was not in an immersive study as she used to be, as immersed as she used to be, that she used to have focus. And I told the school, my daughter never had focus, and she is doing neurofeedback. So what I told the school and I told the doctor was, this isn't working. We got a side effect that we were not expecting. And unfortunately, I have to be present, physically present, in all school meetings with my ex. We are going to court. We had the first session. I have a sort of a confession letter. I have letters that were meant for our daughter, but they are very adult letters. You can even understand what he's saying. And I have all his text messages from the past year. And it proves, when I look at the messages and when I think about the context of those messages, I can see, and I will do my best to prove that is cyclic. Sometimes he's very friendly, but if I do something that he's not expecting, or even if he hears a no, he will burst out. He might burst out even physically. This weekend, she did a sheet of worksheet for school, and she told me privately that she doesn't want to study with her dad anymore because he shouts too much. She even says, he shouts louder than you, he's worse than you, and he threatens me. And it was awful. And I told her, okay, I cannot make you stop. I cannot prevent your father from teaching you things or wanted to be involved in your school life. What I can do is we do the work by ourselves. We leave less work for daddy to do, and daddy can teach you freely without any worksheets, without any schoolwork. But we will try to turn this into playground. Would you agree? And she said she could give it a try. But I'll be, this is something I'll be supervising in the next chapters. This school year was very difficult for her. The first 4 months, she wouldn't even feel safe in school because of something that happened before, happened last year, and it was the reason why I presented a complaint. I took the advantage of having a complaint to ask for the psychological assessment, something I was struggling. I had been struggling for 7 years. Now I had to pay for his assessment, for requesting his assessment. I had to pay for that. And I avoided the child protection services over the phone in 2 minutes or even less. They raised the conflict with me over the phone, and I cut their speech, and I simply said, hold on a minute. I have the full custody for 7 years. I don't live with my ex-partner for 7 years. And I don't want your assistance. And the Child Protection Services said, if you don't want our assistance, you will have the assistance from the court. But they said this in a very threatening way. I'm not afraid of the courts. I'm afraid of the Child Protection Services. So I immediately said, I prefer the courts. I signed the document and no one is after me or after her.
Okay, so sorry, I'm sorry, is there a question that you would like me to help with?
What I really want to know is, would it be enough to present the cycle of abuse through the text messages and the letters? And would it be enough to take care of myself, take care of my child? She now has a new therapist, and keep doing this, because as he is cyclic, I am afraid that he can use also Darvo and paint himself as a newborn man after the incident.
Enough for what? What is it that you're trying to achieve with your evidence?
To be as convincing as possible that there is.
What do you want? What do you want the court to rule on?
I would like the court to just monitor this man, to supervise him. I don't want.
So you want supervised contact for him and the daughter, yeah?
Yeah. Because I want the father to be as healthy as possible, to be present in her life, but in a way that doesn't cage me. Because what I feel is he knows that I live in my parents' house and I'm not happy. And he has been waiting for several years for me to come back to him. And that will never happen. He always hoped that I could come back to him. And that's why he played nice.
Okay. So for your daughter, you're wanting to present a case that your her father presents
is more dysregulated. Yeah, that he is more dysregulated than I am.
In all honesty, I don't know, did you mention that you're in Portugal?
Yeah, I am.
I don't know the Portuguese laws, and I don't know the Portuguese child protection system, so I can only give you the English kind of system.
And it's kind of similar, believe me.
In all honesty, no, that wouldn't be enough for supervised contact, unfortunately.
Okay.
Because how old your daughter?
She's 7, and last year
they're very unlikely to rule that a child, if they order supervised contact, it's usually temporarily.
Okay.
Very rarely is it long term. And with your daughter only being 7, you would essentially be asking for them to, what I'm getting, I might be wrong, that you're saying for the next, 11 years, so she's 18, supervised contact. Obviously, I'm aware that age will play a different a role in that. What you can do is use your evidence to ask for parenting, for him to do a parenting course, something that helps him manage his emotions and his anger, and be able to present how that is impacting. If you feel that he doesn't understand your daughter's neurodiversity, then again you could ask for the court to for him to do a course that helps him to understand a little bit, you understand that and how to meet her needs. But I think that, and you could maybe ask that it be supervised until those things are completed, but I'm not sure. Again, it's very difficult because obviously I don't know your entire case, I don't know all the evidence, but based on what you've said and the English system, I think that would be, it's kind of like your best bet. You would need to be solution focused. So
Yeah, I am.
Also, with the age of your child, you've got to be mindful of the fact that most court orders, although ideally they would last for the duration of their life, therefore you can't ask for supervised contact until they're an adult. So you need to be looking at, right, I think it needs to be supervised now because blah, 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 and weigh that up against the risk of unsupervised. If blah, blah, blah is met, then it will go, then it's, you would like it to be reviewed before it goes supervised. That will kind of be like my advice on how you approach that. Just because I understand the system and that what you're talking about is a language they just won't understand. They don't understand dysregulation particularly well, if at all, and they don't understand what you're talking about in terms of the cycles. So it's about building up the evidence of the impact that this is having on your child. And like I say, they're trying to make a choice between risk of supervised contact versus risk of unsupervised in a normal relationship. That's what they're trying to weigh up. So if you are saying they can't have that normal relationship where it's just one-on-one time, you need to present evidence as to why that is more harmful than them having that normal relationship. Okay. All right. So I'm sorry if that's not the answer you want, but it's
no. It's
family courts are, they don't understand these kind of things.
Okay. So, but I'll prepare anyway, because I will prepare in a way that when this happened, this was the result or the response. And when this happened, very, very factual, because I have been reading your LinkedIn posts for years now. And last year he attacked me. He overreacted extremely badly, and the child saw everything. So I was finally able to press charges against him and see a little bit of freedom, because now he is exposed.
And that will help, because exposing a child to domestic abuse is emotional abuse, so you'll be able to present it under that. Right, I am going to have to, again, that's the UK law.
Thank you so much.
Portugal, but thank you for your question. Okay, last two. Please don't put your hands up now, because I'm not going to deal with anyone. I'm just going to do these last two, which are Zita.
Hi, Sarah. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
So I've got a brief practical question and another question. Well, they are linked. So if I have some evidence and notes, where do I start to put them together in an order? You have some guidance on organizing evidence and finding patterns.
So within the Corporate Toolkit, there is Master Evidence, which has Evidence Tracker, which is, I'm not going to share my screen. I have got it up, but I'm not going to share it because it will take time. But essentially, it is it's a running record of all your evidence, or you could hone in on particular things that you want to prove. So depending on where you are in the process, you can it will tell you, how do I prove this? What's the best way for me to prove this? And then there's all instructions that tell you how do you prove these patterns, and so that's all in Evidence Tracker.
Thank you. Okay. And do you have any thoughts? I mean, I've been listening into the other questions, so I made some of the notes from the previous questions and previous answers. But is there anything you can add to a situation where I'm guessing that the father is trying to create a full-blown alienation? I don't know, but over time I found out that he's pulled the school into his agenda, and we have 50-50, and the school somehow even managed to sign up our daughter into clubs where she would go to the club on during his time, but she wouldn't go during my time. But I had no idea that this was happening for a long time. I think he's creating some case against me. How do I deal with the school, who seems to be now very merged with him? And what do I do?
As I said before, I would try and still work with them where possible, because he wants to create this narrative that you're a difficult person, that you're the problem. So just be mindful of that and don't play into that. Try and work with them. If they've said something or done something, ask to sit down with them and be really curious, and just try and be as collaborative with them as possible. Show them the opposite of whatever he's trying to say about you. So if he's saying that you're controlling, be collaborative, be respectful, be all the opposite things. So that would be my advice, is be the opposite and try and keep working with them, because he will try and he's obviously trying to get them to say that you're difficult, that you're doing this, you're doing that. But like I say, if they've said something, go in and talk to them, and don't tell them off, don't admonish them, just sit with them and try and collaborate with them, and be like I say, be all the opposite things that he's trying to describe you as.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks for your question. Okay, last one. I don't have a name. 1689DB43. I think I know who you are, but I won't reveal your name. If you want to unmute yourself. Okay, if you got your hand up. Oh, yeah, there you go. Hiya. Still can't hear you. No, nothing's coming through. Okay, I'm just going to have a quick look at the chat. What I'll probably end up having to do is, because it looks like it's pretty long, is answer these separately.
I believe 1689 is back.
Yeah, I can't hear him. I've unmuted him, but I can't hear him. You're unmuted, 1689, but we can't hear you. I don't know why. I don't know if it's your volume or something. I'm so sorry. I know you must be panicking your end as to what's going on, and I hate technology. I hate it when it does this. I'm really, really sorry. We just can't hear you. I don't know. Maybe you've used your microphone for something else today and it's connected to that. I'm so sorry.
No,
Just-
nothing.
There we go. We can hear you.
You can hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, right. Brilliant, brilliant. Okay, so can you still hear me? Can you still hear me?
I can't see you, but that's
Yes,
fine.
yes,
We can
yes.
happy to leave.
Yeah, we can.
Oh, brilliant.
We
Sorry,
can hear
sorry,
you.
microphone problem. So sorry. Thank you.
That's fine. No worries. We've all been there.
Thanks for your patience. Right, so very briefly, all the principles you're talking about, I presume, are just as valid and useful in other areas of the family court. So, for example, what I'm currently looking at is an occupation order. And so what I'm wondering is, A, would the court prep toolkit also be relevant for that? My children are a bit older, so this isn't something that would be going through, this isn't about custody or access. It's about, domestic abuse. And in terms of sources of information where I can find out more, obviously, is your court prep toolkit relevant for that kind of thing? Secondly, there's the National Centre for Domestic Violence and or hiring a solicitor. But are there any other sources of information or people with expertise, such as yourself, who are kind of not quite showing up in the search engines, as it were, that I might contact for support or advice in that area?
Yeah, so in terms of the corporate toolkit, no, it wasn't specifically designed for occupation orders per se. It was designed more for planned arrangement orders, obviously presenting domestic abuse, coercive control, alienation, post-separation abuse, those kinds of behaviours, and ultimately, helping you to understand the dynamics and their tactics that they would present. So it could be, it wasn't designed for that, but if you're unsure on those things, it would definitely be helpful for you to know what you're coming up against in that sense. And certainly the master your evidence part, although again, there isn't a specific section around occupation orders that I've put in master your evidence. The evidence tracker itself can be useful in organizing your evidence, and you can create a separate area for anything that you might need, but it would be useful for organizing your evidence in that sense. In terms of other people, I'm sure if you you said domestic, right? Mankind, they're brilliant. They offer a lot of support. Only Dads are brilliant. I'm trying to think. Ben, I don't know if you're dealing with alienation, but Professor Ben Hine is brilliant.
Yeah, I know Ben Hine's work. Yeah.
He's doing one-to-one work as well at the moment. So
okay.
I don't know if you're new to the website. I can send you the alienation webinar that I did with him as well, and presenting an alienation case.
That would be very helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's only Mums and Dads now. Actually, I think they've just changed their name.
No worries.
I think what the other one was. If I think of any others, I'll email them to you. But yeah, I think there are more and more resources that are popping up. I don't know the specifics of what they offer, but they're really good people. So if they don't know, then I'm sure they'll be able to signpost you, but they're the main ones that pop into my head. Again, I'm not 100% sure what kind of support you're looking for, but those are some of the people that I think would be worth you reaching out to.
Yeah, it's mainly support on how to put together and fill out the form and make the case. And again, there's the National Centre for DV that might help with that, or I could hire a solicitor. But it was just to see if there's actually there's this great charity or this great person on Facebook that you know of. That's all I was thinking.
It used to. Both Parents Matter.
Oh yeah.
They will be able to help. If it's like legal documents, I work with a lady called Nadine who she's at Billa Legal. She's a solicitor, but she works with people who self-represent. So she's cheaper than a solicitor, but she's got all the knowledge. She's really good if you need to do specific court documents for a one-off. You could, and again, there's Mackenzie Friends that can help with that kind of thing as well.
Yeah, I've spoken to a Mackenzie friend.
Hold on, I think did you log in as?
Sorry, I was just saying fathers for jobs.
Yeah, I've just muted that one. So yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. That's all from
If
me.
you want to send me an email, and then by all means you can do that, and I will. I'll forward bits to you. I think I know who you are, but I don't want to reveal your identity.
Yeah, I just want to be anonymous. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. You are right. Yeah, we did communicate by email earlier, so that's
yeah. I thought that was it. So yeah, I'll send you that. I'll send you the link to the Ben Hyde. Gary's just said child advice law. As well.
Yeah.
Okay, right, Gary. I'm really sorry. I did say before that not to put your hand up because I've been running 2 hours now, and I think I need to take a break. So there are questions in the chat that I will go once I've ended this call. I'm going to have some lunch and sit down and just recalibrate myself. But once the recording's done and the transcription, I will get everything sent out. I give myself a 48-hour window to get it all done. Obviously, it's a much longer recording today than normal. So I will go through the questions that are in the chat that I haven't had a chance to answer, make sure that you get a response to that as well. Thank you to everyone for coming on this Monday morning, now afternoon, and giving me your time and your questions. I hope that you've all found it useful. I have mentioned there is the Court Prep Toolkit, which has Master Your Evidence. There are a lot of free resources, so there's all the assessments. So if you're not sure about what you need, just go to the Get Clarity section on the website, and there's pretty much an assessment of your situation for all eventualities, and there's a bunch of free resources that are behind that as well. So yeah, I hope that you've found that useful. I appreciate your questions. Thank you. Take care, everyone, and I'll get everything out to you soon. All right, take care.
Take
Bye,
care.
bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye, Sarah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.
Thank you, Sarah. Take care. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Take care. Bye.